All right, welcome everybody. We are at 10:01 here, so we will go ahead and get started. So General Counsel, is there a quorum? Thank you very much. I'm going to do my famous briefing here, so bear with me while I read. Good morning. I am calling to order the December 2025 meeting of the IHCDA Board of Directors. We are meeting pursuant to this board's policy for participation by members of the IHCDA Board of Directors in board meetings by simultaneous electronic communication. This means that only 3 members must be physically present at the site of the meeting, and the remaining members may call in. There will be an audio feed for the general public so that members of the public can listen to the meeting, and there will be a link to the video recording posted on IHCDA's website next month. At the time the motions are being made, each board member that makes a motion must state his or her first and last name for the record. The votes will then be tallied by roll call. I will now take a roll call of the board members to confirm members who are present and their location. Mark Pasquarella, designee for the State Public Finance Director Dan Hughey, is present and in the room. And it looks like we have Greg Pauls, designee for Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith.
Present remotely.
Abby Reddy, designee for the Treasurer of State Daniel Elliott.
Present in the room.
Chad Greiwe.
Present in the room.
Andy Place Sr. Looks like Andy is not with us. Michael Schopmeyer.
Virtual in Evansville, Indiana.
Thank you, Michael. Tom McGowan. Looks like Tom is not present with us today. We will move to item number 1, which is approval of the minutes for the November 20th, 2025 board meeting. Board, do we have any questions or comments regarding the November 20th, 2025 minutes? Hearing and seeing none, may I have a motion to approve?
Chad Greiwe, motion to approve.
I have a first. Can I get a second?
I'll be ready. Second.
I have a first and a second. We will move to roll call. Greg Pauls.
Aye.
Abby Reddy.
Aye.
Chad Greiwe.
Aye.
Michael Schopmeyer.
Aye.
Mark Pasquarella votes aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move to item number 2, which will be real estate. And please welcome Andrea Lynch, who will present the recommendations for 2024 Stellar Pathways Program projects with the Home Investment Partnerships Program memo. Thank you and welcome.
Good morning. My name is Andrea Lynch. I am the Director of Home and HDF Programs. Today we are recommending that home funding be awarded to the first of 2 2024 Stellar Pathway designees. This program is a relaunch of what was previously the Stellar Communities Program, which was last held in 2019. So I'll give some details surrounding what the initiative entails. The Stellar Pathways Program is a multi-agency, multi-million-dollar investment initiative led by the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs, or OCRA. Other state agencies participating include the Department of Transportation, Agriculture, Health, Natural Resources, Destination Development, and of course, IHCDA. The program works with communities on a shared vision for economic development, promotes local and regional partnerships, and assists in implementing sustainable solutions to the challenges facing our rural communities. Any incorporated Indiana community that is not entitled to direct community development block grant funding through HUD was eligible to apply in partnership with either a county government or a nonprofit county leader, such as a community foundation or an economic development agency. Finalists were scored competitively via submission of a strategic investment plan, or SIP, detailing the region's comprehensive community revitalization strategies over the 4-year Stellar Pathways timeline. The affiliated area known as 1 Dearborn County, which includes Dearborn County Economic Development Corporation, Dearborn County, Dillsboro, and Greendale, was designated as a Stellar Pathways community. IHCDA began accepting applications for home funding from the 2024 Stellar Pathway designees on July 1st, 2025, and will continue through June 30th, 2027. Funds may be used for the development of either multifamily or single-family housing. And those designees are permitted to submit multiple applications for separate projects identified in their SIPs, provided the aggregate amount awarded for construction activities does not exceed the $1.5 million set aside per designee. On August 26, 2025, IHCDA received an application from Southeastern Indiana Community Preservation and Development Corporation, or SIC-PDC, on behalf of One Dearborn County to develop multifamily senior housing identified in its SIP. They requested the full $1.5 million allotted, as well as total operating supplement, and were found by IHCDA staff to meet all home rental policy requirements and conditions of the Stellar Pathways program. The development is in the North Dearborn Village, or NDV3 project. It is an 11-unit affordable senior rental development that is an expansion of the existing North Dearborn Village apartments. The single-story building will include 4 two-bedroom units, 7 one-bedroom units, a common area, and rental office space. Additionally, residents will be able to enjoy the amenities that are offered to the existing North Dearborn Village residents, including exercise room, fishing pond, craft room, and an on-site beauty salon. It's the staff recommendation that the home rental grant and total operating grant as listed in Table A be awarded to Southeastern Indiana Community Preservation and Development Corporation. And I'll stop here for any questions.
Thank you, Andrea. So we will pause here. Board, do you have any questions or comments? Looks like you did a great job presenting, so I'm hearing none. So therefore, we are ready for your resolution.
Thank you. Staff respectfully requests that the board approve the resolution. Resolved that the board approve the following: a home rental award in the form of a grant not to exceed $1,500,000 and a home total operating supplement award in the amount of $50,000 to Southeastern Indiana Community Preservation and Development Corporation as recommended by staff.
Thank you, Andrea. Board, we have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
Chad Gray, motion to approve.
I have a first. Can I get a second?
I'll be ready. Second.
I have a first and a second. We'll move to roll call. Greg Pauls. Greg, are you muted?
Aye. Yeah, sorry.
No problem whatsoever. I'll be ready.
Aye.
Chad Greiwe.
Aye.
Michael Schottmeyer.
Aye, and Mark, we can't see you. I don't know if Greg can, but
We
can't
can see
the
you.
presenter. Okay, we cannot. Greg, can you or Andy, can you see them?
I cannot.
Yeah.
I cannot either.
So we're not seeing the presenter. We don't see you at the table.
But you can hear us.
We can hear you.
Okay.
So we're legal, but
Yeah, we will work on getting visuals, but if we cannot, at least if you can hear us, then we can move forward as you stated legally. So we'll move forward. Andy, I see that you have joined us. So
Yeah.
your vote.
Aye.
Mark Pasquarello votes aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Andrea. We will now welcome Matt Rayburn, who will present the Housing for Persons with Substance Use Disorders, YMCA Northeast Indiana Incorporated. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, board. I am Matt Rayburn, Deputy Executive Director and Chief Real Estate Development Officer, and I'll be presenting 2 memos today, both related to some special initiatives that we've been bringing to the board over the last year. My first memo this morning, as Mark stated, is for the Substance Use Disorder Program. This is one that I've been bringing to the board quite a bit recently, so the board's pretty familiar with this. I won't go into gory detail on the program, but as a quick reminder, this is a special initiative between IHCDA and the Indiana Division of Mental Health and Addiction, which is a subset of the FSSA. Last year, FSSA moved $10 million of the state's national opioid settlement funds to IHCDA to construct housing for individuals in recovery from substance use disorder. Under this program, we put out an RFP with the Division of Mental Health and Addiction to select nonprofits who would develop and own these developments. And specifically in that RFP, we're looking for some geographic regions and distribution across the state. So far, the board has already approved 3 of the 4 projects, and today I am bringing the 4th and final project under this initiative. So the proposal today comes from YWCA of Northeast Indiana. They were one of the 4 selected respondents to our RFP that were selected by IHCDA and DMHA. And this project will be proposing 8 units of supportive housing for persons in recovery from substance use disorders in Fort Wayne. The development will feature common space amenities, including a community room, on-site caseworker offices, laundry facilities, and a covered porch and picnic area for families. All residents will have access to on-site supportive services, including case management and peer recovery coaching, provided by the project's on-site supportive services team. Our staff have reviewed this application for eligibility and are pleased to bring this 4th and final project under this initiative to the board today. Happy to answer any questions. Yeah, so that's a good question, Mark. At this point, the money to IHCDA is one and done. We have expressed that if the state has additional opioid settlement funds that they would like to be used in this way, we have program parameters established. We would be more than happy to do another RFP and select other teams. But the MOU that we have with Division of Mental Health and Addiction was a one-time move of $10 million. The opioid settlement funds the state had could be used for a number of activities. They weren't specific to housing. DMHA wanted to make sure that at least a portion went to housing. So this will exhaust our final confirmed amount of funds. But certainly if asked by the state to continue this initiative, if more opioid funds were moved to us, we'd be happy to continue the program.
That's great. I appreciate that. All right. Assuming that there are no other questions or comments for Matt, then I believe we are ready for your resolution.
Okay, thank you. Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve an award of $2,500,000 from the National Opioid Settlement Fund in the form of a grant to YWCA Northeast Indiana, Inc. for the construction of 8 supportive housing units under the Housing for Persons with Substance Use Disorders initiative as recommended by staff.
Thank you, Matt. Board, we have a resolution before us. I will entertain a motion.
Andy Place, motion for approval.
I have a first. Can I get a second?
Greg Paul, second.
We'll do Greg since you've been on the seconding everything beforehand. I'll share the love. Okay, we have a first. We have a second. We'll move to roll call. Greg Pauls.
Aye.
Bobby Reddy.
Aye.
Chad Greiwe.
Aye.
Andy Place Sr.
Aye.
Michael Schottmeyer.
Aye.
Mark Pasquarello votes aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you, board. Just as a quick then recap on this one before I go to my next memo. Now that this memo has been approved, as a recap of this program, as I just responded to Mark with his question, this does get the full $10 million we had under this program allocated out. And we have funded developments now in Terre Haute, Indianapolis, Lawrenceburg, and Fort Wayne. So pretty good geographic distribution. That'll be 42 units of housing for individuals with substance use disorders funded through that program.
Sounds like a great outcome and a great use of that $10 million. So appreciate it. You get to stay up here now,
Indeed.
and you get to present the development of rental housing for youth aging out of foster care regional health systems.
Yes, thank you. So this is another special initiative that IHCDA has been working on, also in conjunction with another state agency partner. So this one actually goes back to 2023. We've not talked about this to the board for a while, so I'll do a bigger recap here. In 2023, the General Assembly approved in the biennial budget a $5 million one-time funding for what was called in the budget bill the Homeless Prevention Grant Program. This was a $5 million program that came to IHCDA to support programs that seek to prevent homelessness among vulnerable populations with a focus on youth aging out of foster care, based on both national and state data showing that youth exiting foster care are at extreme risk of experiencing homelessness. So when these funds were awarded to us through the budget in 2023, we then established a partnership with the Department of Child Services, worked with them to establish the program parameters on how we wanted to use these funds to ensure that while we could fund the construction of the housing, we needed to make sure DCS was on board with understanding how those referrals would work to get the youth exiting foster care into the housing, and to ensure that appropriate services were provided at the projects. So we were able to work with DCS and launch this program. In the spring of 2024, IHCDA staff from DCS, as well as staff from the Lieutenant Governor's Office, who were involved in getting this $5 million funded, worked together to review the responses we received under an RFP, and we selected 4 development teams who would be eligible to request these grant dollars. The teams had until the end of this year to then submit a full funding application for us to underwrite and review. So what we're bringing now is the third of what will be 4 developments under this initiative. So the board previously, late last year, early this year, approved the first 2 developments, which were in Indianapolis and Goshen. We're now bringing the third project here, which is for the Northwest region up in Lake County. So our project today is being proposed by Regional Health Systems. They've submitted an application proposing some scattered site units. There will be 4 units in an existing building that will be rehabbed in Crown Point, and then new construction of 6 units in Hammond, for a total of 10 units of supportive housing for youth aging out of foster care in Lake County. So these will be youth who are identified through the DCS system. They will be between the ages of 18 and 23 at the time they move into the development, and will have been exiting foster care and coming into this program. Regional Health Systems has experience working with DCS on such programs and is ready to go and get this project going. They have a referral system ready as well, and they've identified their service provider, Geminis Corporation, who will conduct individualized needs assessments for the youth, connecting youth with services such as youth developmental, intellectual, and emotional needs, financial stability, and access to completing education and getting employment training programs. Happy to answer any questions about this project.
Matt, you said that there are 4 teams and that their deadline was December 31st of this year. This is the 3rd. So are you still waiting on the application for the 4th team?
Yeah, good question, Greg. So the 4th application is in, and we have requested some clarifications from that team that are due to us next week. So that one should be ready to come to the board, we're hoping in January or February. So we're wrapping up the review of that one. It was the last application to come in.
But the deadline is for the application, not that we would need to approve it by December 31st.
That's correct. The applications were due by December 31st of this year. So that 4th application is in and undergoing review.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So each of the projects was $2.5 million per project. So yes, the total award here, we had the $5 million that the state awarded to us through the budget. And as part of that negotiation for those funds to be authorized, IHCDA matched with $5 million from our development fund. So the total program was $10 million. That's $2.5 million each for 4 projects. Right. Yeah, so if for some reason, so the 2 projects the board has already funded are moving forward. One of them actually just had their grand opening last week and are starting to move in tenants. So they were the first to get funded late last year. The second one is under construction. So this would be the 3rd. If for some reason something didn't move forward with one that was funded, or this 4th application, let's say we didn't get to bringing it to the board, it fell apart for some reason, then we would be able to preserve those funds. The state budget authorization did not put that 12/31/25 deadline in place. That was imposed by IHCDA just to make the teams move forward. So if for some reason another team backed out, the funds would still be ours, and we could put out an RFP and identify another team to complete the funds. Yeah.
Sorry, sounds good. So
No,
if you
good
can hear me.
questions. Yep.
All right. Any additional questions or comments for Matt? Hearing and seeing none, we are ready for your resolution.
All right, thank you. Staff respectfully request the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve the following: an award of $1,250,000 from the Homeless Prevention Grant Program in the form of a grant, and an award of $1,250,000 from the Development Fund in the form of a grant to Regional Health Systems as recommended by staff.
Board, we have a resolution in front of us. I will entertain a motion.
I'll be ready. Motion to approve.
I have a first. Can I get a second?
Andy Place, second.
Thank you, Andy. We'll move to roll call. Greg Pauls,
Aye.
Abby Reddy,
Aye.
Chad Greiwe,
Aye.
Andy Place Senior,
Aye.
Michael Schottmeyer,
Aye.
Mark Pasquarello votes aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. All right, we'll move to item 3, finance. And we will welcome up here Marianne Frapps, Director of Home Ownership. And Jeremy, I do not want to screw up your last name. So there you go. I will let you say it before I massacre it in front of everybody, who's with CFX, who is the financial advisor for IHCDA. They will be presenting an update for the home ownership department. So the floor is yours, Marianne.
Good morning, Board. Ownership Department offers mortgage assist individuals who want to purchase a not receive state or federal funds to currently the ownership programs are available.
Could use a little bit more volume.
Is that better?
No.
Is that better?
A little bit.
Okay, I'll speak louder then.
There you go.
I apologize. Currently, the homeownership programs are available through 2 different sources of funding, which are TBA and bond funds. The TBA mortgages are funded from the IHCDA General Fund and then immediately sold on the secondary market. Those proceeds are then recycled back into the general fund. The next home program of what we offer is 2.5% or 3.5% down payment assistance, which is a non-forgivable second mortgage. The down payment assistance is calculated based off of the purchase price of that home. These are 30-year fixed rate mortgages that are being offered as FHA or conventional financing. And then next we have our bond funded programs. Those are funded through the issuance of tax exempt and taxable bonds. The purchase mortgages are held within the IHCDA homeownership indenture. The programs are also geared towards first-time home buyers. The current program that we're offering, DPA, is referred to as our First Step program, and that's where we're able to offer 5% of non-forgivable down payment assistance. And again, that's offered as that FHA or conventional financing. So the down payment assistance from those bond funds are provided and they're recycled back into the IHCDA homeownership indenture. In 2025, IHCDA, in 2025, IHCDA provided $33,356,097 in down payment assistance to home buyers. To date, IHCDA has purchased mortgages in 88 out of 92 counties. We have a current network of participating lenders of 103 that continues to grow. So there's been a historic volume within that bond funded programs, which has led to some parity issues. So if we look at how we got where we are today, we would need to go back to 2020 during COVID. You can kind of see there from 2019 where those programs were performing with the down payment assistance with these same 2 sources of funding. And then you see that start to change in 2020 during COVID. Those numbers start to grow. So those interest rates, were historically low. So that sparked an interest in people who were looking to purchase homes. That also started to increase the number of lenders and realtors that were expressing that interest in those homeownership programs. So we carried that on kind of, I would say from 2020 solid to spring of 2022. And then that's where we started to see that shift again in the market. 2022 springtime, those interest rates start to go up. And even with the interest rates rising, home prices are going up, there was still a need for down payment assistance. So the number of lenders continued to increase. The number of realtors reaching out, wanting to learn more about the IHCDA home buying products, continued from 2022 through 2023, as well as into 2024. So you can see how those numbers continue to climb. Again, we touched on 2025. At this point, in 2024, we hit that record-breaking volume of hitting almost all 92 counties and sending out over $38 million in down payment assistance. So again, the amount of that record-breaking volume over the last couple of years has led to some parity issues, which is what Jeremy Obadich from CFX, one of our financial advisors, is here to discuss today. So this time, I would like to answer any questions if the board has any. If not, I will turn it over to Jeremy.
Any questions for Marion? Sorry. I guess the only thing I will add in here is obviously the growth of the program with the issues we're going to talk about here with the parity issues are due to the growth of the program. So there hasn't been any issues or losses or anything of that nature. It's just been because the program has been so popular. I'm sure everyone has been paying attention to housing has been in the forefront now for, well, probably ever since really COVID took hold, because after that, people again started buying homes at record paces and you started seeing costs escalate to the point where the average person, as we know, is struggling to be able to buy homes. So programs like this become exceptionally valuable. So hence you've seen that in the numbers. So I just want to just kind of talk about that to get that in everybody's mind. And then if we hear nothing, then Jeremy, I think we're ready for your presentation.
Thank you, Mark. Morning, board. My name is Jeremy Obadich. I'm a municipal advisor for IHCDA, work for the firm CFX. We've been working, CFX is a municipal advisor solely focused on state housing finance agencies all around the country. Presently, we have 18 states which we provide services very similar to the services that we're providing IHCDA. And we've been involved with the IHCDA for over a dozen years. Personally, I've been working in this industry for over 35 years and over 31 years at CFX. And it's been an absolute pleasure to watch the tremendous growth that IHCDA has performed over these dozen plus years. Do you have my presentation queued up, or do I just click from here? Okay, that was Mary Ann's. Okay, I'm not sure if folks who are remote can you see the screen that I'm clicking through?
Yes.
I want to check.
Yes.
Okay, great, fantastic. And how's the volume?
Good.
Great. Okay, wonderful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a little bit of sort of historical context. You know, Mary Ann's giving you a great sort of introduction to the program growth. And what I'm going to do is, as Mark kind of indicated, is I'm going to give you kind of the financial components of that growth and what it's meant. So I'm going to give you a little bit of historical context around that growth. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what happened in 2025, including the U.S. government downgrade, which has really had a real impact tangentially on IHCDA's relationship with Moody's. And then we're going to talk about the opportunity that IHCDA has right now to reallocate equity inside the organization for the benefit of the single-family mortgage revenue bond program, which is the primary driver of all of your single-family loan production. So what we are looking to do is to provide for sustainable growth. And so the first thing I want to show here on this chart is this is going all the way back. This chart goes all the way back to 2013. What you can see is that IHCDA had a resolution that was less than $500 million for a good long time, and until as Mary Ann indicated, COVID kind of changed everything. What IHCDA recognized during COVID is that they had an opportunity to help homeowners, and they did it in a tremendous manner. And I liken this chart to a ski slope. And the analogy I want to plant with folks as we kind of go through these slides is that imagine you're on a chairlift and you are going up this ski slope. And what is happening is you are rising higher and higher up the lift because the goal is to have an awesome run down the mountain. The problem is, as you go higher and higher on that ski lift, ultimately you're getting into thinner and thinner oxygen. There's just not a lot of oxygen as you get to the top of a mountain. And so Marianne touched on this, and Mark touched on this, the word parity. Parity is your equity, which is available for you to finance your program. And as you grow a program, which has grown from $500 million to almost $2.5 million when we measure the balance sheet, the debt that you have outstanding and the assets that you have that are supporting that debt, what is happening is that the rating agency equity, the amount of excess assets that are the over-collateralization of your balance sheet must shrink. The percentage of equity that you have relative to your balance, relative to the bonds outstanding, must shrink. It's just a math problem. You start with a balance sheet, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move here to this slide because this is going to zone in right on 2021. In the beginning, in 2021, this chart, you had $150 million worth of rating agency equity available to be deployed to support your program. But as every year, as that program grows and grows and grows, that program growth was dominated by the acquisition of down payment assistance loans, because down payment assistance is the lifeblood of your single family program and all the single family programs around the country. That's borrowers need a low interest rate, but they also needed the ability to access the home. And the only way they could do that was with down payment assistance. And what you have done, and what all these HFAs has done over this time period, is you've leveraged your equity, your rating capital, what you see there is the green bar, for down payment assistance. And the down payment assistance are loans which borrowers hold, which under expectation is that those loans will come back. They're second loans, but principal is due and payable on those loans by the borrowers. These are not forgiven loans. There was a prior forgiveness program, but the bulk of these loans are regular 30-year loans at 0% interest rate, due on sale or refinancing. And so those are assets of the agency, of the authority here. But the problem is that Moody's and the other rating agencies do not give you full credit for those down payment assistance loans. So we've leveraged your equity, but when Moody's looks at your balance sheet, they assume that 0 cents on the dollars will come back from these down payment assistance loans. It's the most conservative assumption they can make. And they will admit it's overly conservative. In fact, we've been having discussions with them for the last 2 years. And I think that and I'll just a preview for this a little bit later, but I think in 2026, we're going to start getting some relief on this exorbitant, 100 cents on the dollar charge. And so our hope is that we will recover some equity. But the reality is where we are today is that you have leveraged rating agency capital for down payment assistance with the expectation that that money will come back in, but Moody's is not going to give you credit for that. And so that is what we call the parity issue that is presented that is present here in IHCDA. We just can't grow indefinitely and trade equity for down payment assistance because we will run out of equity in the eyes of the rating agency. So what I want to do now, and this is another graphic that kind of highlights this. Green is the rating equity and red is the down payment assistance. And what we've done here is we've traded equity for down payment assistance, Although you'll notice that in aggregate, when we add back everything, you're growing. So you are making money. This resolution is making money. It is a profitable, it's an extremely successful enterprise within IHCDA, the single family mortgage revenue bond program. Grown. We've seen the number of borrowers that have been helped, but financially it's very strong. The problem is that the rating agencies won't give us any credit for the red area at the moment. We're hoping that they're going to give us relief. But the blue line, which is showing that you started with 159 and we add back all the down payment assistance, that's 214. We've had tremendous growth in the program's finances over this time. Any questions before I go into, because this is, I wanted to kind of give some historical context and kind of like how we went from, how you folks went from then to now. Any questions on this before I launch into what's happened in 2025 and the plans for equity reallocation? Great. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so 2025, big year. So in April, IHCDA released, like every April, release your fiscal year-end financials. That showed $144 million of equity versus $1.9 million worth of bonds, $1.9 billion worth of bonds. So that is a 107.3 equity ratio, or what we call parity ratio, what the rating agencies refer to as a parity ratio. That number allowed you to have a AAA rating. And in fact, it had started, we go back a couple of slides, actually, that in a few more slides, but you had about a 130 parity ratio. Every time that kept coming down, 130, 115, 120, 107. 107, fine, no problems, 1231, 24, 107. In May 2025, Moody's downgraded the US government from AAA to AA1. They were the last of the three rating agencies to downgrade the federal government. S&P did it during the global financial crisis in 2010, 2011. Fitch downgraded in 2021, 22, and then finally Moody's in 2025 downgraded from AAA, the highest possible rating, to AA1. The IHCDA single-family mortgage revenue bond balance sheet is 90% Ginnie Mae, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac securities, mortgage-backed securities, which had always commanded the rating of the U.S. government. The IHCDA resolution is AAA. Once Moody's downgraded the federal government to AA1, they had to look at all of the states who were supporting their single-family mortgage revenue bond programs with mortgage-backed securities supported by Ginnie, Fannie, and Freddie and say, oh, all of a sudden we have entities out here which are rated higher than the federal government. Does that make any sense? What they did is they looked at 11 states and said, you're going to be downgraded. And so 11 states were downgraded in May of 2025 from AAA to AA1 because they did not have enough excess collateral, what we call over-collateralization, to support the higher rate, having a higher rating than the federal government when 95% of the collateral was basically federal government supported collateral at AAA. So what they did was they downgraded 11, and then they went, and what they've done during the balance of 2025 is they've looked at each individual agency who was still AAA and said, are you going to maintain your AAA, or do we have to put you on outlook, negative outlook? And that is what occurred with IHCDA. So IHCDA was moved from, still maintains the AAA rating, but was told that they were on negative outlook, which was what other agencies were put on as last in 2024, because just to roll back to 20 24, end of 23, beginning of 24. That's when the federal government was put on negative outlook with their AAA. Then a bunch of the 11 states, they were put on negative outlook, and so they were downgraded. So now IHCDA is on negative outlook. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to discern whether or not IHCDA is going to be downgraded like the other 11. In fact, since that, there have been some other states who have been downgraded subsequent to that from AAA down to AA1. Let me just jump ahead here to this slide. Yeah, this was in August, right? So August of 2025 was when IHCDA was changed the outlook, when Moody's changed the outlook from stable to negative. And that's where IHCDA is right now. What's going to happen looking forward is that IHCDA is going to deliver their 2025 financials in April of 2026. And Moody's, and that will show, because during 2025, you've had continued growth. We bent the curve. We've bent the curve on the growth. So it's because it was sort of unsustainable at $700 million a year. We're now averaging about $500 million a year, a balance sheet growth. I'm trying to get that, and that is much more sustainable going forward. But Moody's is going to look at the new financials, and they're going to see a parity ratio which has continued to fall. In fact, I'm just going to jump to this chart here. Speed up here. So what they've been basically looking at is that in 2021, you had 132, a parity ratio about 132. And then in 2023 and 2024, we've been sliding down to about 104.5. So, and then as they look in 2025, you can see that we're flattening out that line because we've been checking the growth, and we've had some good returns on the existing balance sheet. But we are coming into an area where Moody's is going to recognize that the collateral that's available to IHCDA may not be enough to support the AAA rating. Now, this is all assuming that there is a 100% loss on all the DPA loans. And so what we are trying to do is just talk to Moody's and get them to recognize that the $100 million of DPA loans, which are on IHCDA's balance sheet, are worth something. An amount, hopefully, that is enough to sustain the AAA rating. Now, we don't know what's going to happen in 2026. We have a good program that's running. There's no need to change the financing program. And to be fair, just to roll back, folks who have price deals with a AA1 rating have not experienced any discernible higher cost of their debt vis-a-vis AAA rated entities. It's basically imperceptible, the difference between the two. You will have a few investors who will say, I'll only pay AAA, I'll only buy AAA debt, but there's not many of those anymore. There were more, there's not many of those, mainly because the federal government is AA1, and so that doesn't really work because they've got to buy what they've got to buy. So what we're seeing is really no negative impact on pricing, which means no negative impact on IHCDA's cost of debt or the rates that they would be offering to their mortgagors. So it's not a price issue. It's just kind of it's a presentation issue. And so, and I know that, the state of Indiana has a wonderful AAA rating, and we would, an IFA, and, we would love for IHCDA to be able to support that AAA rating, but it's not in our control. And so, as I said, we are discussing with Moody's about, getting credit back. And they've recognized that they are behind the curve when it comes to this. There are a multitude of states who have down payment assistance loans on their balance sheets where they're giving little or no credit. And what we are, I think they're recognizing that their criteria needs to be updated to give credit for these down payment assistance loans. Because 0 cents on the dollar on hundreds of millions of dollars just doesn't make any sense, that all these DPA loans are never going to be paid back. It's just not the case. We're already seeing repayments. In fact, we're already seeing repayments on down payment assistance loans from folks who are moving, or they had a loan for a couple of years and now they've got to move, or they're going to refi, or whatever they're going to do. Things happen. So we have the evidence, and we're sharing that evidence with them. So we are hopeful that that's going to happen.
So let's pause there for a second. I have some comments, but I'll open up to the floor here for any questions first. Hearing and seeing none, then I'll kind of add my little 2 cents on this. First of all, IHCDA has been talking about this with the IFA, so this is not something that's just been popped up. And the reason why I wanted to bring this to the board is I just think it's important as you hear about the rating, for example, being AAA with negative outlook. I don't want the board or IHCDA staff thinking what is going on. And I want them to have a reason or an explanation on why it's happening, because I believe in transparency, and so does India. Couple takeaways that I have. Number one, it's not a reflection of the state of Indiana whatsoever. This is mainly a reflection of the fact that the U.S. government is getting downgraded. And so because of the U.S. government's being downgraded, the assets in the portfolio naturally are going to follow suit. There's no way that they can ignore that. So this is really a Moody's and their view of the federal government. And I think that's why you see Jeremy making the statement that this is not going to affect us from an interest rate standpoint, because again, the market understands that. The market knows that it's Moody's downgrading it. They're not seeing even the belief that the federal government is really in danger. So the market's just operating as if it's a nothing burger, if you will. So I think that's the key components of it. And the reason, again, why I wanted to have us discuss it here is to make sure that everybody understands that, so that if Moody's sticks to this, we're going to give you zero value, which, to be honest, Jeremy, I think undersold it. It's the idea that if we provide down payment assistance, the only way we get zero back is if every single loan there defaults and the loans get sold for less than what we can to recover. Every loan. And we showed you the number of loans up there. So I do think they need to change their methodology. I think they'll come around to it. I just don't know if they'll come around in time. And so if it does happen where they look at this and they say, we're going to have to downgrade to AA1, I don't want, again, the board to be shocked or to have anybody in the state of Indiana wondering, how did this happen? What's going on? And as you know, then rumors start to swirl, and I'm trying to avoid that. So I'm trying to have a transparent conversation with the board here today so they can understand where we're at today, how we got here, and what is the possibility coming down tomorrow. I'm not concerned from a financial standpoint because, again, like I said earlier, there's no losses. There's nothing that's going wrong. It's just we've grown very well. The product's been very popular due to affordability and housing. It's been working its plan. This just the United States government got downgraded. That's where we're at. You're seeing a little bit of pressure on the parity ratio, but I still look at that. That's because when they look at the parity ratio being lowered, they then look back at the entity of the federal government, and hence we're kind of in a vicious circle here. So hopefully these conversations with Moody's and other rating agencies will start to see the shed of light, and we'll be able to get some reprieve from that and ultimately not be in that position. But I want everybody to be prepared. And again, I just believe in making sure that we have a fully informed board. And so hence the presentation today. So I will pause there. And go ahead, whoever is speaking.
This is Greg Paul. Had a quick question. One of the slides showed there's overall growth of the program as I think it was said like the capital was declining, but but the DPA loans were increasing with overall growth. Do we have any sense of what percentage of those down payment assistance loans do end up in default? I mean, is it like 3%, 6%?
0.05. I mean, literally less than 1%, less than 0.5% in current. Now, to be fair, we have very short history of DPA loans, right? We've only just been issuing loans, and we haven't gone through not that we ever imagine another GFC, but we haven't gone through a stressful, recession or anything like that to kind of test it. Although when we go back and look back at other second loan performance, back during the global financial crisis, the defaults and losses were in the 5 to 7 to 8% type range. So and that's sort of, that's not just state of Indiana, that's just kind of general. So we think that Moody's, giving us 0 cents on the dollar is extremely conservative.
Thank you.
Other comments I will make is the program has been slowed down by tightening the metrics. So there is to make sure that this does not get to the point where it's growing so much that it becomes a very obvious problem. So we have tightened the program a little bit to make sure that we stay within the bounds and be fiscally responsible. We're also looking to take measures to make sure that the product is shored up, to make sure that Moody's is comfortable with where we are, because whether we like it or not, we need to make sure that the rating agencies are comfortable with what we are doing. So those discussions are going on. So again, I want the board just to be aware of what's happening, be aware that we are taking mitigating actions to make sure that we stay in the good graces. We do not believe that anything has been done wrong. Again, it comes back to when your assets are being downgraded or when Moody's is downgrading the federal government. Unfortunately, we end up in this situation. So again, I just want to make everybody aware of that.
Mark,
Yes.
Mike Schotmeyer. You had a slide up there that reflected looked like a half dozen to a dozen states that were already downgraded with this negative outlook last year, which includes Ohio, who I think, and Texas, which I would consider benchmark states, to Indiana. The others I might not, but I would, those two. Who is left without a negative outlook? Assuming they designate us negative outlook.
Yeah, that's a great question. Most of the states who don't have a negative outlook have resolutions that go back 30 or 40 years and are not solely MBS backed agencies. So they have whole loans. So they were born at so in the state housing finance agency world, there's really kind of two distinct styles. There is what I'll call the modern style, which is IHCDA, which is 100% mortgage-backed securities with down payment assistance loans that have basically grown up since the global financial crisis. So they have kind of a 10, 15-year history. Then there are the agencies which are generally sort of more in the Northeast, who started in the 70s and in the 80s. And they have a much longer track record and much higher parity ratios and are not 100% MBS. They're whole loan backed. And, they either had their own servicing operation in-house, places like Mass Housing, Rhode Island Housing, whatnot. So a lot of those Northeast states are still highly rated. Actually, some of them are not AAA. They're only AA1. But they're not on negative outlook because they don't have as much dependency on the federal government for their ratings because they're not 100% MBS. There are a handful of AAAs which are still not on negative outlook. One, because they don't use Moody's as their rating agency. They use S&P. And those agencies have higher parity ratios, generally because they go back to the 80s and the 90s. In the age of their resolution, and then just have more wealth generated over that time. And why is that? IHCDA did a lot of TBA lending during the right after the global financial crisis until sort of 2018, 2019, and so that TBA lending generated a lot of income for IHCDA in the form of TBA profits. But it wasn't inside the mortgage revenue bond resolution. And so that equity basically sits in the IHCDA general fund.
Okay.
Okay.
The other thing I'll add on there too, as well, as you talk about the older programs, I think from all the modeling we have seen is that over time, it won't be immediate in the next 2 or 3 years, but over time, as our program continues to mature, the same effect will happen. So we'll start to see the parity ratio rise again. It's just not going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years. And I don't want to overpromise, with something, oh, this will be taken care of by 2028. Don't worry. It'll just take time to mature and grow. And as it does it, we'll see that flattening of the line, and then eventually you'll start to see that line go back up. And so therefore, but there's that time period, and that's what we're dealing with right now.
Do you want me to just, the last piece of this is the equity reallocation, which I kind of set up for Brennan, and the resolution. So the board will have a resolution in front of them today to vote on, which is reallocating some of the equity that is resident in the IHCDA general fund into the single family revenue bond resolution to strengthen and to sort of to allow for sustainable growth. And so specifically, it's $7.5 million of hardest hit fund monies, which that money goes back to the GFC, and these are monies which IHCDA has recovered from borrowers over time and is not required to send that. It was originally federal funds, but it's and used to help borrowers. It's being repaid, which is great. IHCDA is not required to send that money back to the federal government. They just have to use it for housing purposes. And, working with staff, we feel very strongly that this is an excellent way to deploy those resources, which are really idle at the moment inside IHCDA's general fund. And so using that to help IHCDA borrowers in the form of down payment assistance, and it will also, in the way that we do our deals, it will allow for basically lower rates for those borrowers as well, because we're kind of over collateralizing issues by taking in equity from outside, allows us to slide down the yield curve, get a better transaction, lower cost of funds. And so the resolution will be for $7.5 million of reallocating from the IHCDA general fund into the resolution. And then at the same time, we're going to make a $10 million reallocation of equity that is already inside the resolution, but it's in an account which is not pledged to the bondholders. This was specifically set up in 2021. And now what we're going to do is we're going to move money just inside the resolution into the accounts, which will then count for rating parity because it will be pledged to the bondholders. And so we're just doing a movement of that money. That money we've been using to pay cost of issuance on the deals, and so that would allow us to not have a parity hit. We'll continue to do that. We're not moving all of it, but now we'll be able to use that $10 million in conjunction with the $7.5 million, cover our DPA losses, Moody's losses, and also allow for lower rates. So that's part of the actions for today. So any questions on that?
Yeah, I was in my speak is that we're putting that money in there to, if you will, keep flattening that line. So Moody's will see that we are being proactive about handling the parity issue. You could argue whether or not we need to put that in there, but I think the argument for doing it is to get that coverage ratio stabilized so we can get Moody's at least understanding that we are working towards solutions and we are listening to them. As you can imagine, if we're not listening to them, it becomes very easy for them to make decisions what to do. So that's.
I assume that we need a resolution on the 7.5. It says here we don't need it on the 10, but I assume that'll be next month's meeting then that we'll do this.
Yeah, I do not see the resolution here. Is it part of the 2026A? Okay, so it'll be part of the 2026A. Which is Brennan's going to then present to us. And again, for full transparency with this board, I want to make sure all information was known prior to the 2026A authorization coming, for obviously just to make sure we have a well-informed board.
Okay, so we'll be voting on that in the 26A resolution, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's my understanding. Is that correct? And then before we do move on to Brendan, though, I want to give one more opportunity. This has been a lot of information being thrown at the board, and I just want to make sure if they have any more questions or comments, feel free.
Well, in answer to the questions I asked, one was some states are rated higher because they apparently have sweeteners on these bonds that we've elected not to do. And I'm not saying we're going to ever change that. But the other thing that was raised was, do we go to another rating agency, which I assume we're exploring.
You want to handle that, Jeremy,
Yeah.
or I can give you my.
Yeah, that's. I'm gonna defer to you more because I know you've got a lot of experience with that.
My gut feeling from the IFA world would be that switching rating agencies because of this issue during issue, if you will, could alert negatively to the marketplace of us looking like we're just. Remember the doctor shopping people would always get when they're trying to look for drugs? It would look like we're rate shopping. Like then we'd say, well, we're going to cut out Moody's. We're going to go to S&P right now. And then at some point, I would be more concerned that the marketplace would start to say, wait a minute. We already understand the issue. We understand that the federal government got downgraded. So we're not trading any differently, but why are you switching rating agencies? And I think that could cause an issue. Now, we can think about adding more.
Yeah, I don't mean to imply otherwise, but I thought the question needed to be asked. I agree with everything you're saying, Mark.
Yeah, and now maybe one thing we can look at, and we'll talk with the team, is do you add one if you think that eventually, we believe that Moody's is looking at this wrong. We would then have two for a while, and then once we get stabilized there, maybe you look at dropping Moody's. But I think that's a long-term play. I don't think that's a short-term.
And so the public understands that's very expensive to have two ratings. Ratings are not free.
Nope.
So.
Agree. So it becomes a cost-benefit analysis of what do you think is going to happen with Moody's, and I just don't think we've yet to see where Moody's is going to land on this. So yeah, I'm a little bit tempted on saying let's add another one. But I'm glad you raised the point because I think the point is to have discussions and questions like that. So thank you, Michael.
Right, and so federal government rating, we're tugged down with that, and then our friends next door in Ohio are well run. In Texas, which has growing revenues, they're in the same boat we are.
Yeah, that's good.
That's going to be my line on the street if I'm asked.
Yep, and that's what we're taking out of it, and that's why we wanted to have the presentation because there's nothing to hide, and so we can get it out there, and then again we have a fully informed board at a public meeting to discuss it.
Okay.
Any other additional questions or comments? Hearing none, I appreciate both your presentation on this. This is very meaty, and I appreciate the board hanging in there. And I'll probably give a quick apology to people listening in who are probably very bored at this point when we're talking bond nerd stuff. So, but I do appreciate it. So awesome. Thank you very much. And I'll welcome Brennan here, who will now present the Single Family Mortgage Revenue Bonds 2026 Series A memo. Welcome, Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would like to also start out by saying thank you very much to CFX for being here. Thank you for their expertise. Thank you for and thank you for their help in monitoring this program, and everything they do is adding tremendous value to our longevity. Thank you so much for that. So I am here today to propose a single family mortgage revenue bond. It'll be 2026 Series A. We're hoping to both price and close on this in the month of February. This will not exceed $250 million and will be a combination of tax exempt and taxable mortgage revenue bonds. And this will all be, at this point, we're only talking about fixed rate debt, no variable debt. And as we get closer to the dates, we will continue to have conversations with IFA to ensure that they're aware of what's going on, what our plans are, and dollar amounts and timing as that gets closer. So this has been, we've had this approach, this taxable, tax exempt, I'd call it a vanilla approach for a number of years, and this is working well for us. And this is what we're presenting today is nothing fancy. It's working, so let's not make any changes there. So the second component of this resolution then is to transfer up to $7,500,000 from the general fund. And as Jeremy mentioned, these are coming from the hardest hit fund. These are recouped monies. This program ran from 2011 to 2021. From 21 going forward, we are permitted to recoup any of those lien mortgage monies that have come back to us, and we've decided that this is the appropriate opportunity for us to essentially move that money into the single-family revenue bond resolution. And I also want to point out that while it is possible that at some point that money could come back to the general fund, that would be down the road quite a ways, and it's not easy to do that. So I think what we need to be prepared here to discuss is essentially moving this $7.5 million out of the general fund and essentially leaving it there. That's what we're voting on here, is to move this money out. Mark, feel free to correct me if.
Yeah, there's no guarantee we can bring it back. I think the hope would obviously, as we monitor this program, if what has been modeled out happens and it starts growing and we see that parity ratio growing to, very healthy amounts, even maybe higher amounts than the rating agencies determined, then yes, trying to move that money eventually back. But again, that's years down the road, and I can't guarantee that that's going to happen, or I don't even think it's going to be likely to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. So therefore, I don't want to sell or make it sound like, hey, we'll have this money back. So I appreciate that proper disclosure so that the board fully understands what they are voting on.
So I will pause here for any questions before I read the recommendation.
Any questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, we are ready for the resolution.
Staff recommends that the board approve the issuance of the 2026 Series A bonds and the related bond documents and disclosure documents as in the substantially final form presented at this December board meeting, and authorize any authorized officer to execute the same and effectuate the transfer if necessary. Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve the issuance of the 26 Series A bonds and related documents and disclosure documents as substantially final in the form presented, and authorize any authorized officer to execute the same and effectuate the transfer, if necessary, as recommended by staff.
Mike Schotmeyer, move for approval.
Thank you,
Andy
Michael.
Blake, second.
I got a first and we have a second. We'll do a roll call. Greg Pauls. Or can you give me a thumbs up, Greg?
Sorry, did you hear me? Aye.
Yep, there we go. I'll be ready.
Aye.
Chad Greiwe,
Aye.
Andy Place Senior,
Aye.
Michael Schotmeyer,
Aye.
Mark Pasquarello votes aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Brennan.
Thank you.
And now we will present and move to the general fund operating budget. Just keeping the hits running right now. All right, Brennan,
Yes.
floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I want to also thank the board and the budget committee. Specifically, we met on December the 1st to discuss this budget proposal in detail. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your questions. We appreciate the opportunity to take a deeper dive into this to ensure that what we're delivering today is a solid budget that we feel is very achievable. I'd like to just start a little bit by saying, talking about the approach that we've taken. We take a bottom-up approach. This is a collaborative effort. We start with the specific needs of each department and program. We then review those individually and compile. We then review those results at a macro level to ensure that the general fund can adequately cover those needs. And even though we are experiencing instability in the economic market, we are anticipating a positive net result from operations to cover our needs. That's the good news. Spoiler alert. We believe this approach has resulted in a very solid budget for 26 and is both realistic and achievable. Going through, I'll turn your attention to the actual budget itself. The first couple of pages there, the executive summary. The purpose of that is to include some of our base assumptions as well as narrative for some of our larger variances, which we'll discuss here in just a second. The next page is the statement of net position just for the general fund. And we'll pause here for just a second to walk through some of these highlights. Revenues for 26 are anticipated to increase compared to the 2025 budget. Our investment income and fee income remain very strong. Moving down, our operating expenses are expected to remain relatively flat when compared to last year's budget. Some notable variances include salary, wages, and taxes, which are projected to decrease due primarily to downsizing. Benefits are increasing due to premium increases in health insurance. Largest variance here that you're going to see is in equipment and software are projected to increase as we replace our grants management software. We talk quite a bit about our old system, DMS. It is antiquated and living on borrowed time, and it is time for us to take this very seriously and find a different platform. So we're going to be focusing on that in 2026. Moving on to professional services expense has decreased due to some initiatives that were considered in the 2025 budget that will not recur in 26. Program contributions are unfavorable primarily due to a recent change in the lead grant that at that time did not permit, or now does not permit certain expenses to be reimbursed, which in the past it did. So that program no longer is fully self-funding. We've included for your consideration pages to detail revenues and professional services expenses. We've also included an itemized list of our capital expenditures, and the focus is on added functionality for our existing software that we are still needing to use while we establish and develop and establish a new grants management software. And then the last page is the combined budget for the general fund and federal and state programs. This budget specifically excludes program revenue and benefit payments, which mostly offset each other. You're going to also notice there on the equipment and software, they will be sharing some of the burden of the cost of developing a new GMS system. That was a quick run through. I'll pause here for any specific questions that you might have.
Any questions for Brennan or comments? Hearing and seeing none, all I'll add is that Chad and I were part of the process. I think we looked at it. There was nothing that stood out to us. I think the focus in on software is noted and necessary. So there's nothing there that I think that surprises us, especially as we move even to a more and more digital world. Having antiquated software will not be a good thing. So we can support that. But that's all I really have. Chad, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Nothing else to add.
All right. Well, and that is the case. I believe the budget committee will actually be making the recommendation, which will count as a move, which means I'll just need to have that seconded. And then from there, then we'll do the roll call vote. So I will read it. The budget committee respectfully requests that the board pass the following resolution. Resolved that the board approves the proposed 2026 budget attached hereto as Exhibit A as recommended by staff. That's a first. Can I get a second?
Mike Schottmeyer, second. And I thank you, Chad and Mark for your time working on this. Appreciate it.
No problem. Our pleasure. So we'll got a first and we have a second. We'll do to a roll call. Greg Pauls.
Aye.
Bobby Reddy.
Aye.
Chad Greiwe.
Aye.
Andy Place Sr.
Aye.
Michael Schottmeyer.
Yeah, aye.
Mark Pasquarello votes aye. The budget is passed unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Brennan.
Thank you, guys.
And don't worry, we do have two members of the budget committee. I will be reaching out. We will want to have three. So one of you lucky birds will be added to there. It actually is a very important one. I think the way IHCDA does it as well, they explain it very well and ask for questions. So it's a very good process we go through. I just like to keep it. And I'd like to have three members on that as opposed to just two. So we will be looking to add one. All right, with that, our business is done. So item number 4, we will move to the IHCDA update. Executive Director, Mr. Pearson.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank RBC and CFX for taking the time to join the board meeting today. Thank you. An update. On November 26, IHCDA received a low-income home energy assistance program award totaling $76 million. With this funding, IHCDA has determined it is no longer in need to utilize the $2.5 million approved by the board during the November 2025 board meeting. However, IHCDA would like to thank the board for that consideration in November. So thank you. As of 2025 coming to an end, and we reflect on what the IHCDA team has accomplished, I'd like to give a few highlights here. A complete review of the IHCDA staff handbook has been done, and I'd like to give special thanks to Jamie Kenyon, Jennifer Phillips, and Larry Robertson for all the time and effort they've put into that. That was a big lift. It had not really been looked at since 2016, so thank you, team, for that. The legal team processed 178 contracts and contract amendments in 2025. The Healthy Homes team, who oversees the Healthy Homes and lead hazard reduction programs, have successfully provided critical repairs to 102 units, with another 30 currently under contract. These completions were undertaken in 39 counties. 14 of those families had a child who had lead poisoning. The Energy Assistance Team, as of yesterday, there were 48,895 households assisted with a total benefits of $26,587 sent out. The accounting team had a clean audit and as just was presented, a prudent budget. Thank you, Brennan. Even though this has already been presented, the home ownership team assisted 2,862 individuals purchasing a home with $33,356,097 in down payment assistance being provided. Huge accomplishment. The real estate team oversaw a historic volume by awarding $1,051,540,340 to 40 projects that will create 4,460 rental units. Matt and your team, excellent job. Thank you. The Housing Choice Voucher team increased its voucher utilization and its quality assurance, resulting in an annual Section 8 management and performance score of 96 out of 100. The team's highest score to date, and as a result, once again designated IHCDA as a high-performing public housing authority. Despite this excellent score, the team is on track to obtain even a higher score in 2026 based on current metrics. IHCDA completed all of this while an interim executive director, a new executive director, a chief financial officer, a chief community programs and service officer, among other various staff changes were made. Therefore, I would like to recognize the IHCDA board, Secretary Speedy, Alex Hickner, for their support and guidance. Additionally, I would like to recognize the IHCDA staff for their dedication and hard work. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments for the executive director? Hearing none, we'll move to other business. Thank you, Tom. I'll just reiterate that, obviously I want to recognize Secretary Speedy being here. I do want to thank the board. We went through a very detailed, complicated situation today talking about housing. It's just a complicated product. But your dedication, your understanding of that means a lot to me. And it also means a lot to the taxpayers, making sure that we have an informed board. So I do appreciate that. I will do some quick hits here with the executive director and the executive team. This is a complicated, it's kind of like a bank, and you guys run it, and you run it well, and I really appreciate it. I only got two more because we're going through this fast because I know it's been a long meeting. The last one I will say is Dan Hughey, who's the public finance director for the state of Indiana, is actually the board member. I am merely his designee. You don't see him because he's left me on here because I've been on this board since 2011. However, after every meeting, after every discussion, he's a part of all of that. He is retiring at the end of the year, so he'll no longer be public finance director for the state of Indiana, which is a loss for us. But obviously, there's always that when people come to their time and they've made the decision, he's going out on his own terms, which I think is tremendous. He's been a tremendous asset, not only to the state of Indiana, but to me personally. But I just wanted to do mention that because again, he has been a part of this, but it's a bit behind the scenes. But last, I think, and most importantly, I think the people who I want to thank, I want to talk to the staff directly, is that we make decisions up here. The executive team does the leadership, but I know that deep down, the staff is the ones who do the hard work. And I'm constantly told all the time about how individuals, it's not just, well, they did a good job. It's about how much they want to be at IHCDA and how much they want to do the mission. And so I can give all the accolades, and I think it's important for us to recognize that. But I think the most important thing, hopefully, is that you recognize that every day when you come in here, what you do does make a difference. And I know I've said that before, what you do matters, but I don't want people to forget it. And that's why I'll continuously repeat it almost every single year. Understand when you do things, you're helping people in homes, you're helping with substance abuse, and all that stuff really matters. Not that selling widgets isn't bad, but this is some of the hardest work there is to do. So I know I appreciate it. I'm sure I speak for the board and the leadership team from IHCDA and Secretary Speedy and Dan Hughey, the Public Finance Director, and just thanking you for all your hard work. And I look forward to a tremendous 2026. So thank you. And with that said, I'll open up for any comments. Hearing or seeing none, then at that point, I always get this confused. I do not believe we need to do anything. We can just adjourn at 11:22 a.m. Thank you very much, and everybody have happy holidays.
Thank you. You too.